Scott Davies from Hilltop Honey, coming to us live from Powys, Newtown Powys in Wales. Welcome to Brand Growth Heroes.
Hey, thanks, Fiona. Thanks for having me on.
I love your backdrop. It is a beautiful bright yellow. And I assume that's because today we are going to be talking about the golden liquor of nature, which is honey.
Yes, it is
I
indeed.
can't believe I feel mortified that when Stu McDonald from Manny Life introduced us, I didn't know Hilltop Honey. And then I go on this journey with you to discover that you are going to be turning over 50 million next year. 50 million. And can I ask what age you are? Do you mind?
No, not at all. I'm 36.
You're 36. And you've built a factory that's going to turn, you've got a massive factory. How big is the factory?
55,000 square feet.
And you have 140 people working for you? That's creating 140 jobs. And if not, how many pounds in the area that you are the multiplier? I'm sure there's a multiplication that you can do.
It must be, but it's a lot,
And you are number 2 in the market, is it? After who?
Rice Honey.
Rice Honey. My God, that is incredible. That is incredible. And it brings me back, we'll get into the story in a minute, but I started my career in Nestle, as many listeners know, and my first job was brand manager on Sunpat peanut butter, and my co-partner in crime was on honey at the time. I can't even remember the name of the brand at the time. Gales Honey. And we just had to talk household penetration of spreads, and we had to talk about rate of sale of spreads, and we had to manage private label. And you also do private label, right? So start at the beginning. Tell us how the hell you did this by the age of 36. And we'll dive into the magic.
Yeah, okay, cool. So quick background, failed school, became a bricklayer, worked at a coal yard. Housing market crash happened in 2008, so no one was employing bricklayers. And then my disc slipped into my spine at the age of 21. Really knocked me about. So I had a year in a back specialist hospital trying to get me back up and running again. They said, look, you're...
a year in a hospital?
A year back and forward to a back specialist hospital, right? So Gaboin Hospital's not far from here, so I was back and forward to there. And they basically said, okay, bricklaying, kind of coal yard working, kind of not a thing. You should probably do something different, a bit more relaxed in an office. I had 3 GCSEs and a bricklayer as a sort of foundation. So when I went to office jobs, no one would accept me. So when I was like 22 on the way to 23, trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do in my life. And I wrote 3 little business plans. One was dog walking and kenneling. One was selling stuff on Amazon and eBay, sports equipment, more specifically. And then starting a honey business, right? Because I had 1 beehive at the back of my mum and dad's house that I kept, and I was really into it. And I said to my mum and dad, I said, look, guys, I'm a reasonably big Welshman and takes a lot of feeding. So I know this is no mean ask, no small ask, but can you feed me and keep the roof over my head when I start a business? Let's look at it like I'm going to university, because I never went. And that's a great idea. You got 3 years. Let's see where you get to starting a business. So I chose honey because I love the bees. I just loved working with them. I thought they were incredible. And they are actually, when I was speaking to friends and family, no one really knew a lot about beekeeping or honey production, and found that actually the honey category was quite boring considering how exciting bees are. The irony of all this, Fiona, by the way, is, and any beekeeper listening to this will know, is that you do not start a beekeeping business with a bad back, right? Because it's horrifically bad for your back. Okay, so I found that out quite quickly, right? So that was it, really. So in September 2011, when I was 23, I took a $5,000 overdraft from the bank, having spent a half-day course with the Welsh government, writing a business plan. Looked like more of a story now, actually. It's kind of laughable, but it got me my $5,000. Yeah. My $5,000 went and got me my website, my logo design, first jars of empty jars and stuff. And off I went, selling door to door around the neighborhood. And I actually ran out of my own production of honey by the first month. So I had to start trying to find people to buy honey off, which is actually harder than you can imagine.
So you've built this business from selling door to door, all the way from having your own bees, doing a local government course, selling door to door, and now... So, okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is just mental. So what happened next?
Yeah, so I started saying, and believe it or not, I was really, really shy as a kid, right? So I failed school, wasn't really great with people. Mum used to do my car insurance for me and stuff like that, even at the age of like 22. So sweat would just be like pouring off me, like knocking
Oh,
doors. I built, but it's kind of if you want to get into leadership later, right? Introvert and extrovert. I've kind of like an introvert learned how to be an extrovert in many
sure.
situations. And so I just knew I had to do it because there was no other choice. That makes me go over the line, even though it's like excruciating. So I went down to the local veg shop, sold like 4 jars on sale and return. I was absolutely bouncing. Couldn't believe this whole place would like buy a jar of honey off me and sell it for a profit. And that was it, really. It was a simple trajectory of going, okay, well, I need to be in more shops. How do I do that? And I just started going around little farm shops and delis and the usual story, if you're in a really knocking doors around them, and really just cutting my teeth on how the hell you run a food and drink business, right? Because I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't ask for a mentor. I learned best through failure and just getting burned. So I just went around and for 3 years I did that for food festivals. So I did like 30, 40 food festivals a year. So it was actually brutal. And then kind of at the end of the third year, I was still making no money. So I think I was doing the first year I turned over £23,000, second year 84,000, third year £234,000, right? So at the moment in time, I'm like, okay, turn over £234,000. All my friends thought I was making £234,000. They all thought I was absolutely tilled, but I wasn't. I didn't have any money. And and mum and dad were like, okay, Scott, you're 26. I remember driving back from a really horrible October day up in Conwy Food Festival, made no money, driving back home with my auntie. She's like, Scott, what are you going to do? You know, you're 26, going on 27. I hate quitting. I hate quitting. I said to mum and dad, I said, give me my master's degree, right? One more year, and then you'll have to drag me out of this business kicking and screaming. And then a couple of months later, we had a specialty fine food fair down in London. I could only afford one day, so I went with the Welsh government and got the Tuesday. And we picked up Holland and Barrett from that. Like, and I say picked up Holland and Barrett. Anybody that knows food and drink, you don't just pick them up tomorrow. It took me 10 months from having that conversation with them. But the fact of the matter is, they then ordered as much honey as I sold in my first 3 years in their first order,
Wow.
and that catapulted the business then into getting a premises and employment and all those things. So that's my little story, really. That's how I got going, and kind of rolled with the punches
So
from
what was it
there.
like going from someone who failed in school and only had 3 GCSEs to like, did you know about yourself that you were this clever? I mean, seriously, I'm being
No,
serious here.
no, I don't. I don't think I did. I think there's lots of self-analysis done, isn't there? Right, in a course of time, and I think potentially as a kid there that just sort of disrupted class because he was bored. I can learn quite quickly and get to the point really, really quickly. So this sort of education wasn't tailored for my level, whatever level that would
Sure,
be, right? Because I'm
your
just trying
profile.
to consider myself academic at all. Much prefer being out there figuring stuff out for myself. So yeah, it's no, I didn't think I was that clever, and I think many people around me thought I was that clever. To be honest, when I started Honey, they were like, "What the hell are you doing, man?"
So one of the things you said to me in our pre-call was that you're always thinking 2 years ahead, and I said to you that that was really rare because all of the founders that I work with, it's something that they struggle with. They are working in the moment, and they're working with this year, maybe half of next year, and I'm always trying to stretch them to think, far ahead. You're always 2 years ahead. How did that help you when you were starting out, and how does that work for you now?
It's a really good question, actually, because it actually helps you focus through the day-to-day hell of running a business, to be honest. So you sort of coast through it. It looks like you're coasting through it anyway because you're living so far in front of you that it helps you just deal with the absolute. Well, anybody that's known food and drink businesses, it's really, really difficult. So that's how I can say it, really. That's how it helps you. It helps you just focus on the fundamentals. And my team is so fed up of me talking about fundamental points, right? But there isn't many of them. And one of them is like, where do you want to be in those 2 to 3 years' time? How are we going to get there? What absolute do we have to nail? And then the rest of it's just noise. All right, the rest of it is just noise, and we'll deal with it when
So
he comes.
talk to me about when you were walking the streets or when you were, knocking on doors or into farm shops, were you already thinking 2 years ahead?
Yeah, of course. Like I was in my head, I was in
Are
Tesco,
you
right? I
serious?
was already there. Yeah, I was there. It was just part of the course now. I had to do the things to do to get into
And do you
Tesco.
think in
So
in
I was
retrospect, was that like naivety or was it conviction?
I think it's conviction. I think it's conviction in your own belief. If you don't believe it, then no one else is going to go and make that happen for you, right? You have to believe that's going to happen. And I wasn't ashamed about like thinking that either, right? So you get a lot of them going, "Oh, well, we're not looking for the supermarkets. We're not looking to know." I know I needed to scale. I know I need to do a job actually within the supermarket arena because it was done so badly, in my opinion. So what did I have to do? I had to prove concept. I have to prove that I got a brand. I have to get the money to be able to service Tesco. I have to get the premises to be able to service that. So it was all stepping stones. And it's the same with the product launches, right? So we started off with British honey, and over the time we've launched honey from all over the world. And that was huge stepping stones for us because everybody thought we were a British honey brand. So it was really nerve-wracking going into like organic honey from Europe, because then it was like, okay, you're no longer British. Is everybody going to stop buying us now tomorrow? And then you go from organic honey into like maple syrup, for example, and then you go into honey from all around New Zealand, Asia, South America, and you get comfortable with making those steps at the right time.
How do you make sure then? So it sounds like you're playing in a lot of areas in the honey category and adding value,
Mm-hmm.
I assume, in certain segments. How do you play up against big, huge behemoths such as Rouse and still win? Because surely you're all playing with commodities at this level of doing business, especially if you've got private label in your portfolio.
Yeah, and I think there's so many things being talked about right now that we haven't got enough time to do, right? But I think answering your point about the commodity question, we've desperately tried not to become a commodity and build value into that. Some would argue, yes, we're cheaper than Rice Home on shelf, but we work with our suppliers and our factory and our own factory. We haven't got other shareholders needing to satisfy in that. That's a decision I've taken for the last sort of 12 years. And we also didn't have a marketing budget to push Hilltop. So again, a conscious decision. We wanted people to buy Hilltop. The biggest marketeers out there for food and drink are the supermarkets. Being on that shelf space is huge. So we put all of our marketing into price if you want to get like businessy school about it. And then from that point on now, we're building the brand now. We've got consumers. We've got millions of consumers to talk to every day, week. So now we feel like we can rectify everything from the
Okay.
inside, right? Instead of standing from afar and shouting about it. Um, so we're adding value, but I go around every country to see all the beekeeper leaders, meet with as many beekeepers as possible. We do tests for every stage of the supply chain. We're working on blends constantly. We're working on single points of origin honey. We're trying to develop honey countries like continents, even like Africa, who are not prevalent in the global scale. That takes years to work with those guys to get them ready for the market. So yeah, there's lots of different things we're
Like
doing.
a honey visionary. So the Hilltop honey that I buy in the UK, is that from just the UK or is it, could it be from anywhere?
No, so we know where it's come from, right? So we're typically you'll have a Chinese honey and a South American honey blend, and partly European as well. And like sort of your what would you call your more commoditized
Yeah.
honey, your £2.50 price point squeezies. Then you'll find our English honey on shelf. You can find Manuka honey on shelf from New
Okay.
Zealand.
So I can
And
buy,
I think that
sorry, I
big
can buy an English honey from you.
You can buy an English honey from a retailer that we pack. We desperately try to keep our British honey on shelf, but it was shelved,
Uh,
ironically. So that's the journey we're on,
yeah.
right? That is absolutely the journey we're on in terms of what I want to see happen in the honey fixture. Where it's at now and what I want to see happen is consumers believing there's more to honey and they're wanting to find out the different tastes of honey. Your lavender honey, your orange blossom, your eucalyptus, your rubber honey, is almond honey. There's all sorts of honeys out there. But ultimately the retailer is the sort of custodian of the
Yeah.
customer, really, aren't they? They're the ones that are going to give us that license to talk to them, and then the rate of sale isn't there, and that's the kind of the tension in the room. Consumers say they want things, you put it on shelf, they don't buy it, and it gets
I
taken
know.
off. So you go, well, we give you the chance, and forever goes the cycle. But I think that's for us to fix now and become a bigger brand in our messaging and really get people to buy into it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, now it's going to be really interesting, isn't it? From a kind of a textbook case study point of view. Can you build a brand once you've already built the audience. It's really interesting. I'd love to know, has anyone else done that before? I see.
Yeah, it's definitely not typical the way we've built it as a challenger
But
brand.
that's okay. And I assume you're going to work with a Welsh brand designer, because
we haven't actually. So Big Fish did our most recent
the
rebrand.
Big Fish, brilliant.
So they're good at what they do,
are.
right? And I think what's happened is I spent a number of years trying to build Hilltop now, and we finally got to the point in time of scale where we've gone, right, if we're going to do this, we've got to get the best team in the room. So we've recruited the best people. We've gone out to the best people. We've just done a recent marketing campaign, huge out-of-home campaign. I think we're just coming to an end of it now. Onboarded St. Luke's for that. Really threw the kitchen sink at it. And that's what we're going to continue to do for the next few years.
Was that on outdoor TV, online?
Yeah, so we sponsored ITV this morning, the food section of ITV this morning for a year. We've gone big on all the London network and loads of billboards around the country as well.
Any is it too early to see any increase in sales? Have you seen any results?
It's just something my marketing director hates me asking, right? Because I'm like the first week in, I'm like, what's happened? How's this changed?
It's a brand awareness play, isn't it?
It's not that simple. And then you got your FD saying to you, why have I just put this in the budget? Because the top number doesn't move, but all this cost has come out. And I'm like, yeah, it's
tell him you're supposed to spend 60% on brand building and 40% on selling, and that's the golden rule.
I sort of said to him, it's an investment. Like imagine if it was a shiny piece of stainless steel, Rob. It's like that, but it's in a brand sense.
Oh, that's very clever.
And he's like, he kind of gets it, but he still says he needs to see the top line move. I'm like, yeah, so to a point, so do I. But yeah,
talk to us about shiny pieces of stainless steel then. What is it like building a 55,000 square foot factory?
Yeah, that, you know what, that was carnage, right? Because it was in the middle of COVID that we did it as well. What's it like? I design it all myself. I can build it all myself. I moved the entire factory during COVID with me and a few others. So I'm fairly hands-on. That's where my hands-on ability comes into its own. It's great. It's daunting. It's decision-making. It's once you put that big lump of wall and steel there, that's not moving. So hopefully it stays there for another 5 years. And I think the going phrase at Hilltop is that we always say it's in the last 5 years and it lasts like a year, right? So you kind of go with that. But it's really good, and it's our power, right? It's our ability to leverage what we've got, and one of those things is the area we're in with the people that we've got and the space that we've got.
So okay, and you've got 140 people working across all different levels in the business. What's it like?
Yeah,
leading, managing 140 people when you didn't have any idea even how to start a business starting out?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you think, is it a blessing or what's the other word? What's the opposite of a blessing?
Is it I can't remember. What is a blessing or a
curse?
A curse. Is it a blessing or a curse?
Right? Is it a blessing or a curse? Because one sense is that's all I've ever known, right? My whole work experience is working at a coal yard with 30 people bagging coal and 2 bricklayers. And then I've got loads of FMCG kind of specialists coming in from the likes of Unilever, Nestle, Goo, Tesco, or whoever, right? And of course, you have the whole fancy words, imposter syndrome, and all that nonsense to a point. It's like, yes, everybody's different, right? And everybody has a certain way of doing things. That's why I'm kind of not. The imposter syndrome is a bit weird for me. It's okay. Yes, I'm being challenged in a different way. I've got great people on board. They bring different aspects of leadership to you, and that's all good things, right? And your first initial thing is, oh, my days, am I good enough? And then the second thing is, yes, great, what can I learn?
Me too.
So in answer to your question, it's being seen and leading from the front, but also as a founder, early days I was trying to make myself redundant as fast as possible. So I'm trying to set the direction, I'm trying to set the strategy. And then the biggest thing there is getting people to own their own strategies. And if they can own their own strategies, they're well on the bus, then they're really well and truly on the bus, and they are buying into where we're going because they made up where we're going. So yeah, it's communication's key, right? Especially in the world of hybrid working as well, where you can't just walk into an office and have a coffee with all of your direct reports. They're all over the country.
Senior women in leadership in the business.
Yes, senior women leadership of the business. We've got marketing director, Kate Utting, and we've got our ops director, Melanie Teese.
Okay.
Two superpower women, to be honest.
Brilliant.
I got head of HR and Janet Rascagneres. I've got
Lots
um,
of
pardon?
senior women in business then.
Yeah. No, I have, and I love it, right? But it's not one of those things, Fiona, where I don't make a conscious effort because of their sex, because of how they're employed, right? So I'm kind of one of my biggest gripes at B Corp actually was that we don't get any points being a bloke on there. So it's kind of positive discrimination. I kind of don't really get it, because it's been really freaking hard for me to build this business to where it's at. And I'd like to think it's not because I'm bald with a beard that I've got this far, because it doesn't help many people. So great women, great people, to be honest with you, in the leadership team, and right the way through the business, to be honest.
What do you think it is that has got you this far then, if it isn't being bald with a beard?
My smile.
Yeah.
No. What's got me this far? Pure and outright determination, facing up to the facts and having brutal honesty about where we're at. I find like too many people are kind of kidding themselves as to why they work. I absolutely lean into the fact that why we work, and it might not marry up to the rules of being a founder or being a challenger brand, but there shouldn't be a set of rules, right? What works for you. I think those are the main things. And obviously going back to your point before about being way in front of yourself, to focus on the long term rather than the short term stuff. I think that's what's worked really well. Really well.
What advice would you give to founders starting out in the same way that you started out? Because just the reason I'm asking that question is people say, oh, it's totally different today. Costs are so high and inflation's so high and, like ingredients and logistics and global situation is totally unstable.
Yeah.
What would you say to people saying that today?
It's nonsense, right? There's never a great time. There's always a good time, sort of thing, right? It's building the case for the environment you're in. There's always opportunity riddled through the environment you're in. Generally in chaos, generally in upheaval, there's even more opportunity, right? You just got to find it and act really, really fast. Self-belief is massive, but also, like I just said before, staring to the honesty of the situation as well, of being able to accept what's happening in front of your eyes and not completely just turn off to it. I'm different in a lot of founders that I speak to because I've managed to retain the entirety of my business. So my advice is potentially different to people that have raised money, but mine was like patience. So I use this kind of little analogy of like trying to push a snowball down a hill. And when you start off, right, you can see the bottom of the hill, and you can see it's a long way away. But you just start, and your ball's really small, and you have to turn a lot, and you have to keep going really, really fast. And it gets bigger, and it starts to build, and it starts to compound and compound. And the reason I'm trying to say that analogy is that it's super easy to skip down the hill, right, and carry on. But I was like, right, the faster I can start building at the top now, the quicker I can go at the top, the faster I can get going to the bottom. So now our revolutions are so big, our ability to affect the next year, because I've got full retaining ownership, we can properly invest. No one's going to worry about returning. No one's going to worry about exiting. We can focus on the long term. No one's going, I need to be out in 3 years. I'm around for the long term. So therefore, everybody around me believes that, and they're well and truly on the bus. So I think if I was talking to people that are and ahhing about trying to raise money or whatever, I feel like truly ask yourself why you need it. Look, what I just talked to you about marketing, right? So we didn't just go, right, okay, we're going to be really expensive and we're going to chuck loads of money in marketing. We're going to build it from the inside. I think the patience on the goal. So just step it out in front of yourself and go, okay, what happens this year? What happens next year? When we get that list in, I'll be better off because of X, Y, and Z. So yeah, having that patience, not many people have it, but it means you have to be less patient in the long run.
Brilliant. It's brilliant advice. And like I said to you, we just had Gary Lavin on from Vitit, and he said exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Okay. And you're kind of both doing it the old-fashioned way. I mean, this is the way we used to build businesses 25, 20, 15 years ago, because there wasn't the opportunity to build something really quickly, and nobody went out and got funding. And I think we'll come a full circle back to that. My last big question for you is on manufacturing versus co-manufacturing. For anyone out there listening who is considering, you know, should they build their own factory? Should they get a co-manufacturer? Or maybe up until this point, like a lot of founders I work with right now, they have worked with co-manufacturers, but now they're thinking about bringing it in-house. What would you say to them?
You do have to be a certain person to want to manufacture, right? And I definitely see marketeers and manufacturers. It's your superpower to be able to make your own stuff, right? It's laughable that people say that it takes like a year to get MPD over the line. I can tell these guys tomorrow to go and make a flavored honey, and I'll have it in 4 weeks. So like the ability to just to speed is like you can be super fast with launching it. So how can I sit here and tell anybody for it's a bad thing to have your own factory, right? I've built the entirety of Hilltop off the fact that we've had our ability to pack our own honey since the get-go. So I would definitely say do it. But if you can make money out of co-manufacturing it and not having a manufacturer, then do that also, right? It's a kind of as a case-by-case basis. It's what you're trying to achieve in the market space that you're in. What are the opportunities and who are your competitors, right?
Yeah.
And so it isn't a one-size-fits-all situation.
I get it.
Honey is, relatively simple product to pack, in my opinion. You can have a lot more complicated products with a lot more needed to make that production line. But yeah, I'd say if you can, definitely make it yourself.
So where to in 2 years' time, 4 years' time? Where are you going to be?
Where are we going to be? Definitely a bigger part of the honey fixture, we'd like to think. And we're going to diversify out of honey into a couple of other spaces, snacking and drinks,
Ooh.
hopefully. And we'll have at least a very good beachhead in America as well.
Oh my God. Why into snacking and drinks rather than just into other spreads?
Because honey is utilized in so many different
So you'll
products.
stay with honey. Honey's the constant.
Honey's like, yeah. So my original idea was products on the Beehive, right? So you can have like bee pollen, propolis,
Yeah.
royal jelly. You think of beeswax. You think of what you can make with beeswax, beauty
Yeah.
products, candles. But it feels like with the team that we've got now and the branding we've got now, and making honey more prevalent in the fixture space across the whole of grocery, I think we can do a good job with that.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's brilliant. Well, look, I really look forward to watching you guys grow. I'm so glad I became aware of you on shelf. I wasn't, and that's probably because you weren't doing any marketing.
Yeah,
But
probably.
now I'm going to be watching out for you big time, and it really is incredible what you've achieved. So congratulations to you and to your whole team. It is really inspirational, particularly when you say things like, you know, you'd only worked as a bricklayer and in a coal mine and a coal mine in a coal. What was a coal yard?
Like a coal packer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just crazy, you know. And you didn't like school and all those things. It's really kind of edifying for anyone because
If I can do it, Fiona, I tell you, if I can do it, then yeah, most people can.
Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Fiona. Thanks for having me.